Record to the cloud. All right, now we go. All right, so I'll back up real quick. So this is going to be a topic, the keynote's going to be titled Building a Strong Local Authority in Multifamily Investing. And before we get started, I want to share a little bit about myself and my background for those that might not know who I am. So I'm the managing partner with a multifamily syndication group called PassiveInvesting.com. And my background is primarily been in business. And I have several different, I have a group of specialty medical clinics. We do non-surgical orthopedics and sports medicine here in South Carolina. And I also have investments in about 146 million plus worth of multifamily real estate. And my portfolio consists of a little over 1,450 doors. I'm also the founder of the Multifamily Investor Nation. And today, during this keynote, I'm going to share with you how that all started. So you kind of have an idea as to the brains behind the whole madness. And then I'm also, along with my wife, I'm the co-host of a podcast. This is actually our very first podcast we still do the episodes on this today. It's called the Tough Decisions for Entrepreneurs podcast. And it can be found on iTunes as well as on the other, Google Podcasts and Stitcher and Spotify and various things like that. And that podcast is all about interviewing entrepreneurs from around the world that have faced tough decisions in business. And we go and dive into how they made those decisions. We go through two types of decisions, one that had a good outcome and one that had a bad outcome. And then we have them dive into the lessons that they learned in each one of those tough decisions. And so I would encourage you to go find it, subscribe to it, and start to learn from an entrepreneur's brain and perspective as well. Let's see. So this is actually, oops, I missed a slide there. This is a picture of my family. So I always feel it's important to share these kind of photos so you can kind of see who I am behind the camera, if you will. And so on the top left-hand corner there, you can see my wife. She's holding our youngest child. That is Callie. And she is 1 year old right now, she's about a little over a year and a half old right now. Actually, not a year and a half. She's a year and maybe 4 or 5 months. So she's almost a year and a half. And then in the middle of the screen there is my son, Caleb. He is 7 years old. And then to the right there, you can see my wife and I there watching a baseball game. And then right below us there on the right, that is our third child. That is Chloe. And she is almost 3. She'll be turning 3 in August. And yes, if you look very closely, you can see she's actually looking at the Jacksonville, Florida multifamily market report from, I believe it was like CBRE or somebody that we had, actually one of the brokers that we had went and visited. She didn't go to that broker meeting, but that was one of the brochures, one of the market reports that was in the back seat, and she wanted something to look at. So I handed that to her. And so I'm getting her started early so she can be also helping daddy when she gets older and doing some multifamily real estate. And then on the bottom left there, you can see Caroline on the right-hand side of that ride that we're on. That ride is actually at the Mall of America in Minneapolis, Minnesota. So we all, as a family, enjoy going to Minneapolis, Minnesota for a little trip, short, 2 or 3 day trip from here in Columbia, South Carolina, because they have an indoor theme park. They got 27 rides inside of it. They got 4 stories of shopping, and they have 2 hotels attached to it. So it's really nice to be able to land there in Minneapolis, take the light rail over to the mall, and then stay for a couple of days, and then go back. So it's a lot of fun. That's one of the things we like to do for fun. And so that's a little bit about me and my family. And today we're going to be covering a couple of things. So first, we're going to talk about how it all began with the Multifamily Investor Nation. And then we're going to dive into why authority platforms are important for you and why those local aspects of those platforms are important as well. And then we're going to be covering the top 3 things to know before you start your own meetup, whether you're going to be one of our co-organizers or whether you're going to start your own meetup, what you need to know to make sure that you can set your meetup up for success. And these are some things that we have learned over the last 9 months since we started the Multifamily Investor Nation, and I'm going to share those things with you so you can not make the same mistakes that we've made. I'm also going to talk about some changes that we're doing with our own meetups for the Multifamily Investor Nation moving forward into the latter part of 2019. And then I'm going to talk about some steps that you can take to become one of our co-organizers for one of our local meetups in your area. And even if we don't have a meetup in your area, I'm going to talk to you about how you could possibly start one in your area and help us build this multifamily investor nation brand and allow you to become that local authority in your market by also leveraging the multifamily investor nation brand. So make sure you pay attention and stay attentive for that. I'm looking forward to sharing with you about how you can participate. All right, so let's go into the first topic here, which is how it all began. So I'm going to get a little personal here and share with you something that I love to do. It just helps me being able to relax, okay? So one of the things that I like to do just to enjoy, I guess you might say it's kind of my me time, if you will. It's like everybody needs that downtime for just you and just yourself, and to be able to have that quality time just to relax a little bit and recoup. And so I like to play racquetball and I like to do some golf and things like that. But in the evenings, usually a couple times a week, we have a hot tub outside, but we also have a jacuzzi tub inside the house. And usually once the kids are in bed, my wife's gone to sleep, if I'm still awake, I'll usually go into the hot tub and just relax, right? And just I'll usually either listen to a podcast or, read a book or, go through some of my emails if I got behind during the day or something like that. But one of the things that I like to do is just ponder, right? Just think. And sometimes it's hard for us as entrepreneurs and business owners to just take that time to really set aside some quiet time to really just think and ponder. And so one of the things I was doing one evening is I don't know if I was researching something or whatever, but I was just sitting there thinking, I was like, I wonder if I could somehow leverage the Meetup platform to be able to grow a group of solid quality multifamily investors to, really build a community and be able to provide a lot of value to that community through all these meetups. And so that's really when the idea was born. I was sitting in a hot tub and family was already asleep, and I was just doing some pondering and some thinking, and I was like, let me see. I actually remember today I was sitting in the hot tub and I pulled out my phone and I went to GoDaddy to see if the domains were available. So I went to GoDaddy and said, is multifamilyinvestornation.com available? And it was available. So while I was in the hot tub, I registered that domain. And then I also was thinking, well, I better go ahead and register apartment event or apartmentinvestornation.com as well, in case somebody wanted to rip off the idea and use the word apartment instead. And so I registered both of those domains. And so before I even got out of the hot tub, and then from there it's been history, because the next day when I have an idea, I do what's called relentless implementation. I'm usually the type of person that's like fire, ready, aim, right? And so I just go, we figure out the process on the back end. It's not perfect. I'm not saying it's something that everybody should do, but that's basically what I do. And so we started the very next day, opening up the meetup groups, finding some co-organizers. And right now it's been 9 months down the road. And this is now our second Multifamily Investor Nation Summit. And we also have we have almost 7,000 members of the meetup groups across the country and 50 different meetup groups across the country. And we also have probably another 4,000 to 5,000 that are, part of our group that are part of the meetup groups. So we have almost 10,000, I think now, or a little over 10,000 people that are part of the Multifamily Investor Nation. It all started from that one idea and just starting to implement, not trying to think through all the logistics and all this kind of stuff, just going and doing and figuring it all out at the back end. And I will say the first summit that we did was a lot harder, a lot more challenging, because we were putting all the pieces and all the puzzle pieces together. And so it was a lot more work for us, and we only had a shorter period of time. I had 2 months. And so since the last summit, we had more time to put it together, find some more speakers. The first one, we only had 2 rooms going on at the same time. And this one we have, as you already know, we have 3 of them going on at the same time. And so there's definitely been, a lot more, work involved with this one, but it's been a little more streamlined because we had the systems in place, and we put that in place out of necessity because I put those dates out for the summit. But back to the whole, Multifamily Investor Nation and how it began, it just started with an idea. And it started with an idea that I put my full force effort behind to be able to grow. And it's been 9 months ago that I started that. And, it's been great to kind of see that grow. But we've also been able to help other people like you be able to start your local meetup groups in your area and be one of our co-organizers and take advantage of that brand that we've built called the Multifamily Investor Nation for yourself. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit as well. Now, you might be thinking, why is it important for you to be able to build a local authority platform for your particular market? And there's several different reasons for the reasons for building an authority platform. And one of the things I would encourage you to do is, I actually have a book on my shelf right here. So my mentor is Joe Fairless. So a lot of you already know that. He has been very beneficial in lots of different areas for me, but he wrote this book called The Best Ever Apartment Syndication Book. And inside of this book, he talks about the importance of building an authority platform to be able to build your authority in multifamily, to build that and to increase your credibility. And so that's one of the things I did right off the bat is I started that first podcast, the Tough Decisions for Entrepreneurs podcast, along with my wife. I was able to invite a lot of high net worth accredited investors onto the podcast to be able to build that network of people. And then from there, I launched into the Multifamily Investor Nation. And then, of course, that has helped be able to build this local authority within my market, but also for me across the entire United States. But even just in the local market, it's very important. There's people that I've met over the last 9 months that are now coming to me for advice over the last 9 months, that they see the position that I'm in now because of that local authority. So in my area in Columbia, South Carolina, we do have a Columbia, South Carolina meetup. We have one in Greenville, South Carolina, and we also have one in Charleston, South Carolina, and then we also have one in Charlotte, North Carolina. So around me in this Columbia, South Carolina market, we have 4 different local meetups, and I try to participate in as much as those as I can. I can't be at all of them, but I try to participate with them as much as possible. And so I hope that you can kind of see that it would be important for you to build a local authority platform for you, because it'll elevate you and people will start to look up to you. And it also allows you to kind of reverse the roles of what I like to call networking. Obviously, I like to I like to do reverse networking and what I mean by that is when I go to an event, you guys might not think this from what you know about me, but I'm really kind of an introvert when it comes to networking. Like I'm not the type of person that likes to just go up to a bunch of people and put my hand out there and introduce myself. It's just not me. It's kind of hard for me to do that. And I'm sure there's several of you that are watching this right now that you're shaking your head going, yes, that's me too, right? And you have that, you have a hard time, getting to that point of being able to go out there and actually do that. And so for me, and this is something that's important for you as well, is that you can now do what I call reverse networking, where instead of you having to go to somebody else to introduce yourself to them, you can reverse your roles in an authority platform like a local meetup and get people to come up to you. And they're coming up to you and introducing themselves to you. And so you kind of reverse the roles there, because now when you're in that authority position, they want to get to know you. And so they will reach out when you host a meetup, people will come up to you. And that way you don't have to be able to have that extra effort of actually going to somebody else. And so one of the things that I've found over the last 9 months is that when I go to a local meetup or when I go to a national event, it's hard sometimes for me even just to go to the bathroom without somebody wanting to come up and introduce themselves. And it's great. I love meeting people that way. And they come up and they introduce themselves and they shake my hand and they tell me their story and we spend some FaceTime together. And it really helps me to be able to accelerate my networking. And another kind of tip that I'll share here as well from a networking standpoint is you can now start to, when you have that authority built up, you can start to build relationships with people through these meetups and schedule meetings with them. And so you can have some more one-on-one and FaceTime with some of your members of your meetups, because you have the list there at your disposal for the meetups that are in your particular local market. So then when you are in that authority position and they're coming to you for advice, well, guess what? When you have a deal to put together, chances are that some of those people will probably want to partner with you, whether it be partnering on the GP side, or maybe partnering as a capital raiser, or maybe even partnering with you as a passive investor and investing with you on a passive standpoint. And so I can personally attest that my ability to be able to create these local meetups for me, just in my local market, has allowed me to be able to have more investors in our projects. I'm not going to tell you if everybody that goes to these meetups invests, because that's not true. But there are people that come to those meetups that will invest with you, and they invest with you because they're being taught by you. They're learning from you. And so you're providing value to them. And so most of you have probably, if you've followed me for any length of time over the last 9 months, I'm not selling anything other than these tickets for the Multifamily Investor Nation Summit, but I'm not selling any coaching programs or mentoring programs or anything like that right now. I don't do that. I don't have the time and the energy to do that. And my goal is to just provide as much value and as much content as possible. And the more value and content that I can provide, the more of those people that are trying to find their own deal, put their own partners together, they might invest with me in the future. And that's what I'm seeing. There are people that now follow me and they'll email me. I got an email the day before the summit from somebody who had heard me on a podcast, and they were inspired by what I said, and it helped them change what their business plan was. And they were sharing their story with me. And that makes me feel good. So I like getting those emails and getting those stories, and just people saying, hey, this is what you did that impacted me and my future for multifamily. And those are the types of people that when you have your next deal and your next offering, those are the types of people that will likely invest with you in the future. And so I've seen several of those where people say, you have provided so much value to me that I really want to invest with you because I want to be able to help you as well, right? I even had an investor about 2 months ago. I was on a phone call with an investor, and this investor said, I got an email from a friend of mine who watched a YouTube video from one of your prior webinars that you had done. And she sent me a link to watch that webinar. And I decided not to invest in 2 deals based on your webinar and the information that was in there, but I would like to invest in your deal, in your next deals. And so we had that conversation, and we were able to start that relationship process with them. And that person eventually invested in one of our future projects. And so it's exciting to kind of see when you start to provide value to other people, it's really exciting to kind of see how that all comes together when you start to have your own offering. And I will say that whenever you are starting to provide that value to other people, I do it to make sure that I don't sit there and provide value and then ask for them to invest. So I wait for them to want to reach out to me to want to invest, because I with our Multifamily Investor Nation, we educate over 10,000 people right now across the country and across the world, and a very small minority of those people actually invest with us. But it's all about the community as well, because guess what? I've had investors that have invested with us, and prior to them investing with us, they called me up and they said, hey, I just want to let you know that I have talked to a lot of people in the multifamily space, and they talk nothing but good things about you, right? And so that's something that I think is very important, even from a reference standpoint. But you might be sitting here thinking, I'm not you, Dan. I don't think I can stand up in front of a room and provide a lot of value to people because I don't know a lot about multifamily. Well, in the next couple of slides, I'm going to share with you how joining us in one of our groups as one of our co-organizers can help you get outside of that shell, and we can start to help you and educate you with that. And this is not a sales pitch, so I'm not selling you anything with this. You don't have to pay anything to be our co-organizers. As a matter of fact, I have to pay Meetup.com for you to be one of our co-organizers. So just put your guard down. I'm not trying to sell you anything. Again, this is really me trying to provide as much value and content with you as possible. So there's three things that I think that you need to know. So in order to start a successful meetup, and these are some things that we've learned, and then some of the things that we're going to be changing as we move forward into the middle part and the latter part of 2019. And I hope that this will help you as well. So first thing is whenever you start a meetup, you've heard the phrase location, 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 right? Well, you have to make sure that you find a location that is easily accessible and easy to find. So sometimes if you find a location that's kind of you have to go in the double doors, take the elevator up, turn right down to the left hallway, and then turn sideways and get into a conference room. A lot of times, the harder it is for people to find your meetup, the lower the attendance is going to be, because it's harder for them to find it. But if you can find a location that is easy for them to find, and when it's on the meetup, if they can picture it in their mind about where it is, there's a higher likelihood that they will actually show up. So make sure that when you're hosting the meetup, you find a good location. And so there's two, I'd probably say three popular areas or ways to do it. So number one, you can do it on inside of a hotel room. So as your meetup grows, I would suggest maybe moving it into a smaller hotel room, conference room, or meeting room where you can host 20, 30, 40 people in a 2-hour period of time. The downsides of the hotel rooms, depending on the hotel, is that it might be a little more expensive. It's usually about $200 to $300, sometimes more, depending on your city and your area. And so you have to start to charge more for your meetups and stuff like that. But then also when if you wanted to try to bring in some outside food and drinks, a lot of times that's prohibited. So I would probably reserve kind of the hotel side of things until your meetup grows, right? And then the second thing that you can do would be to host them in, I like to call them like cafes, or like Panera Bread, Starbucks, Caribou Coffee, those types of shops where maybe when you first get started, it's only 5 to 10 to maybe 15 people. You can get together in a couple of tables in one of those coffee shops, and be sure to. I always say to be sure to be cognizant of the fact that you're using a Starbucks, even though Starbucks doesn't mind, or Caribou Coffee doesn't mind if you use their facilities just for a meeting like that. You don't buy anything because they want you to have that space, but I always feel like it's important to be able to have the attendees buy a cup of coffee or a drink or a snack or a piece of water or something, just to provide some extra value for that local cafe or whatever. Caroline also mentioned here, and we've done the same thing as well, is using some larger co-working spaces. So we've actually done some in some of the WeWork spaces as well as the Regis offices. And then there's also a website called Peerspace. If you go to Google and just type in Peerspace, Peerspace, I believe, Peerspace, there is a place there where people that have conference rooms, like myself, I have a conference room right over here, that if somebody wanted to rent it out, they could rent it out. And so I don't rent mine out, but I'm just saying that you could use a company like Peerspace, and you can go into local, large executive offices and, rent out a 15-person conference table and host a meetup there as well. You just have to make sure, again, it's easily accessible and not hard to find. And so as you grow, you might want to, you'd have to, increase that even more. So those are two things. And then the third thing is you can do them at local restaurants. So a lot of times, depending on the day of the week, a lot of restaurants have a lot of extra space, especially like on your Monday nights, Tuesday nights, Wednesday nights, where the restaurant traffic might not be as busy in the evenings. You can do them in there. A lot of times they'll allow you to, host a meeting in one of their back rooms, and you just have to call around and start to network with some people. But usually restaurants are in good locations and easy to access and easy to find, depending on your market and your area. But then they will have a space for you available, and you guys would order dinner or food or snacks or hors d'oeuvres or something to provide some extra money for that restaurant, because that's why they have those meeting spaces like that, is because they want you to host large groups so that you'll spend money on the food, because that's where they make their money. So those are the three things as far as locations. And then the second top thing that you have to understand is that, yes, location, but you also have to make sure that you have Dustin mentioned something that I'll cover here in just a minute as well. The second thing that you have to do is you have to be consistent with your meetups. You have to have some sort of consistency with it. So if you're going to host a meetup, it needs to be something that everybody can, in the back of their head and on their schedules, they can always predict when you're going to do it. So if one week you do it on a Tuesday and the next week you do it on a Friday, or if you do a once a month meetup and you do it one time, it's in the first week, and then it's in the second week the next month, and it changes the dates. It's a little bit harder for people to plan for that, and you're not going to get as high of attendance. But if you can say the first Monday of every month, we're going to have it. And if it's a holiday, we'll push it back to the next week. Those are the types of consistencies that you need to have. Or I know one of our partners does one on Fridays, every other Friday. So every other Friday, he does a breakfast meetup. So that's Danny Randazzo in Charleston, South Carolina, every other Friday. And everybody knows in that meetup, every other Friday he does it. His meetup has grown because of that consistency and because the location is very easy to access as well. And so one of the things that Dustin has mentioned here is that you can have a mix of both physical and virtual meetings. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that as well as I talk about how to become one of our co-organizers for our groups as well. So the first thing that you want to make sure of is making sure that you have a good location and you're consistent with that meetup. And there is a third thing that you want to make sure you have, and that's content. And the reason why I bring the content up is because when I first started the Multifamily Investor Nation, it was all about informal networking. We got together at local Starbucks, Panera Breads, things like that, and we would just meet up and start to talk and network about multifamily. And there was no real content or cohesiveness to the group. And so one of the things that we're going to be doing moving forward into the latter part of 2019 is we're going to be hosting these, we're going to be, as we host these meetups, we're going to be providing some education around the meetups as well. So it's not just getting together and talking multifamily. It's going to be, let's get together and network for the first 20 minutes. And then let's get together and talk about some content. And then we can network some more afterwards as well. And so, because I think that there has to be in a meetup, there has to be some form of education plus the networking to really allow that group to grow and to become more of a close-knit community instead of just being this let's just network and meet up. And so one of the things that we're going to do is provide more of that content to our co-organizers throughout the country. And I want you to be one of our co-organizers as well. And I'm going to share with you how you can do that as well. So changes in the Multifamily Investor Nation meetup groups. So going off of those top three things, we're going to be moving away from just informal networking. I still want to have some multifamily networking in the future, but not networking, multifamily informal networking in the future, we've done like Top Golf events before and various things like that, where there's not any education with those. It's more just, hey, let's just get together and have some fun and go bowling or do things like that. We're still doing some of those things, but the main core of the group is going to be a monthly meetup or a bi-monthly meetup, depending on what that co-organizer chooses. But it has to be consistent, and there must be some content with it. And so what we're going to be doing with our co-organizers is the last week of the month, we're going to be having a webinar just for our co-organizers and teaching them on a particular topic that's going to be covered for their meetup for the next month. And with that, we'll be providing a one-sheeter which has the bullets and the content on that one-sheeter that you're going to cover so that you can share that with your meetup group. And that way, you're not having to come up with the content. You don't have to worry about having guest speakers, and you will already have that content, and you'll be educated on it. And so you'll be able to jump on with other co-organizers across the country. And that webinar is going to be only for our co-organizers. So you have to be a co-organizer to be on that webinar with one of our groups. So you're going to get some free education that's exclusive, and it's going to be me teaching you. And so we'll have some other guest experts on there as well. We'll have our other two partners, Danny Randazzo and Brandon Abbott, to be able to provide some additional content and value for our co-organizers. But we're going to provide that value and that content for you on that webinar the last week of the month. And then that way you have that one-sheeter, and now you could be that local authority and you don't have to come up with the content. And so you'll already have that content laid out. You'll already have been learning that content and studying it. We're going to record those webinars. So if you wanted to watch them afterwards, you could, to be able to get a refresher. And then that way you can go and teach your local meetup about that particular topic that we're going to do. And it will be a 12 to 24 month rotating content calendar where we'll talk about things about, how to find the best property management companies, and, how to find, lenders and working with brokers and closing a deal, and what about exiting the deal. And so every month will be a different topic that you'll be able to cover at your local meetup, and you don't have to worry about coming up with that content. We'll come up with the content for you, and then you can share it with with your meetup as one of our co-organizers for the Multifamily Investor Nation. And Denise here said, what if I haven't participated in a multifamily deal? Can you still be a co-organizer? And I would say yes. So what we're looking for in our co-organizers is we want to have more than just one co-organizer for each group. So, and then the reason why that's important is because let's say you 1 month can't make the meetup because your family is sick, or maybe you're on vacation that week, but it's consistent. So it's always, say, the first Monday of every month you have that meetup, right? The first Monday of every month you have a meetup, and you provide that value, you provide that content. Every once in a while you might not be able to make that because of prior arrangements or weddings and all kinds of stuff that happen. And so you'll want to make sure that you provide you have somebody else that can help you with that, right? And so we want to have about 2 to 3, 4 to 5 max, depending on the market, of co-organizers in that area. And there are some areas like, say, Dallas, Texas, and Orlando, Florida, and Atlanta, Georgia, that there is a lot of spans for us to be able to cover. And so we might have 3 or 4 meetups that are going on at the same time. And so we want to have 2 to 3 people in each one of those meetups that are going on at the same time, because you're going to have them in different parts of the city, right? And so we'll want to make sure that we, put you in the proper position and connect you with the right people as well. And once we have a certain number, once we have, 1 or 2 in each market, we'll want you to be talking with that local co-organizer and seeing if you're going to be a good fit, because we want people to work well together and really balance each other out. And so that's why we're going to go through a process of making sure that you're a good fit for it. And so those are some of the changes that's moving forward with the Multifamily Investor Nation. And one of the things that you have already started to see is we try to provide you with some additional discounts from various larger meetups across our larger events across the country. And then as one of our co-organizers, you'll also be able to have discounted tickets to the Multifamily Investor Nation Summit, and you'll be able to do some revenue sharing with us with selling tickets to the January 2020 Summit. So make sure that if you're interested in being a co-organizer, that you reach out to us and you let us know, and I'll share that with you on this next slide here. So this is, after I cover this, I want to open it up for questions and answers. So if you have any questions right now, find that Q&A box and just type it in your questions, and I'll spend the last couple of minutes here answering as many questions as I can for you around whether you want to host your own meetup outside of the MFIN group, or whether you want to be a co-organizer. I want to provide as much value as I can for you. So please add those questions to the Q&A box so I can help you. So there's really a couple of things that we want to have. So we want to make sure that moving forward, all of our meetups are done the first Monday of every month. So the first Monday night of every month between 6 to 8 p.m., we want to be able to host a meetup. And so it's be 6 to 8 p.m. in your local market. So it doesn't mean, so if Ruben, you're watching here from the West Coast, it's not 3 p.m. in the afternoon, to 5 p.m. It would be 6 p.m. Pacific to 8 p.m. Pacific. And same thing here, 6 to 8 p.m. And that's flexible. So if you wanted to do like 7 to 9 or, 5 to 7, depending on your market, sometimes it's better earlier or later, depending on traffic and travel and where the actual meetup is located. We're fine and flexible with that. We want it to be consistent. We want all of our meetups or our meetings to happen on the same day. So once a month, Monday nights, the first Monday of every month, we want to have that. And we also want to have a commitment from our co-organizers to help us promote the meetups. And so we want you to be able to, post them on Bigger Pockets event pages, and send them out to your friends that are in the market, and post it on your social media, and really help us build these local meetups, because it's only going to help you in the long run. And one of the benefits that you'll have as a co-organizer is, as you start to build your local authority, you'll have access to be able to reach out to and have the contact names and emails and whatever else is available to be able to send messages to people in your local meetup. So you'll be able to participate with that. And so you'll be able to really build that local authority for yourself. Now, there's the first step to becoming one of our co-organizers is we want you to send an email to Stacy at multifamilyinvestornation.com. So just Stacy, STACEY at Multifamily Investor Nation. And she probably won't respond to you on this stuff until next week, because she is really busy right now with the summit over the next between today and tomorrow. But I want you to send her your name, your email. Obviously, you're going to be emailing her from your email, and then your phone number. And then also include which markets that you want to be a co-organizer in. And then and also share a little bit of a bio of your background and where you are right now in the multifamily space, whether you're new, just getting started, or whether you've closed multiple deals, kind of where you are. So we understand who you are. We can match up people properly for each one of these meetings, so you can kind of really provide that value to the group as much as possible. So and then one of the things that Chad had mentioned here is that there's a meetup going on, say in his town there in Nashville, Tennessee, and there really hasn't been a meetup there in quite some time, and there are several meetups across the country of our 50 groups that we don't have right now a good co-organizer in that market. I might have had one at one point, but they kind of dropped off, and so one of the things that we weren't doing in the past was this content. And so we really feel like this content will help you as one of our co-organizers, but also help your local community around this multifamily investing as well. And so if there is a meetup in your area, yes, you can still be a part of that. Even if they are meeting right now on a regular basis, you can still participate with that. So Ruben had asked here about what are some of the sample topics. I'll cover those here in a minute as well. But send that email to Stacy, STACEY at multifamilyinvestornation.com. She's going to be helping us coordinate that piece of it, and also coordinating our co-organizers. And so give her some time, probably next week, Monday, Tuesday, to reach out to you to be able to further the conversation. And we are going to have you participate with our first webinar to be able to promote to your list. So if you want to participate as one of our co-organizers, your first meeting that you would be a part of would not be until August. And so you would participate with our content that we're going to be doing. It'll be at the last week of July, and she'll provide you with the dates and the times for that webinar so you can participate. And if for some reason you're not able to make it live, we will record them so you can watch them later, and so you can still provide that value to your group. But we can't do July because the first Monday of the month is actually next Monday, July 3rd, I think, or maybe it's first, Monday, July 1st or 2nd, something like that. I've lost track of time. So that's how you can become one of our co-organizers. It's not going to cost you anything. I'm not charging you for it. As a matter of fact, I actually get charged a monthly fee to have these meetups. And so I want to make sure that somebody in that local market is taking advantage of that, because I don't want to just be paying for these local meetups and nobody being able to be there and providing value to their local market. So please do that if you want to do it. Stacy at multifamilyinvestornation.com. And when you email her, give her until Monday, Tuesday next week to really reach out to you and give you some more information about that next webinar that you can be a part of, and also asking some more questions to see if you're a good fit and where we could actually fit you in for one of our co-organizers. All right, let's see. Ruben says, nope, I'm going to do a 4 to 6 a.m. He likes that early morning thing, I guess. So I know some of you have probably reached out to me in the past. I know Adam said here he had reached out to us on the Meetup platform to possibly be one of our co-organizers. And so I do have a list of people that have reached out to us, and so we'll be reaching out to you as well. But I would like you, if you've already reached out, to go ahead and send that email to Stacey so she can do that. So, all right, so let's go through a couple of these questions here. Let's see. How long does it take to understand if we are accepted as a co-organizer? I'm not really understanding the question here, other than, are you trying to understand how the meetups work or how to understand multifamily in general? So if you can clarify that question, I'll definitely answer that for you, if you could there, Wanda. All right, what's the best way to see the list of current meetups? So you can go to multifamilyinvestornation.com, and on that page, when you go there, there will be a M for the Meetup. It's a Meetup logo. If you click that Meetup logo, you will be able to see our. It'll jump you to the meetup.com page where all of our meetups are located. And so you can kind of see pins across the entire country as to where our meetups are. And so when you go there, if you see you have one there, it's okay. Even if there's not one there, it's okay. We still want to hear from you, because if we look at that market and we're like, yes, we want to have one there, we will definitely do that as well. We are not afraid of opening more meetups, because I would love to have double. I'd love to have 100 meetups across the country, but I want to make sure we have good, active, solid co-organizers across the country. And one additional thing that I am also considering doing is as one of our co-organizers, once or twice a year, we're going to have special events just for our co-organizers. So you'll be able to either come to one of our properties and tour it and see what we're doing from a renovation standpoint and meet our team, and then also maybe even having some sort of a destination type area as well. And we won't be charging for it other than just the standard expenses and stuff like that for travel and hotel and things like that. We want to provide that extra value for you as well as one of our co-organizers. So if there's not any more questions, I will go ahead and close this out. There is one question here. Let me see here. Is there a time commitment you'd like a co-organizer? For example, co-organizers can commit to at least 1 year. I haven't really thought about that, Alicia, as far as the time commitment is concerned. I would say that it's flexible. So I don't want to pin someone down and say that they have to be one for a year or anything like that. Obviously, I hope to provide value to you, so you want to be there for at least a year or more. Be with us for a long term, for a long time, and provide that value in your local market. But I don't necessarily want to have some sort of contract or time commitment or something like that. But I do feel like if you want to be a co-organizer, I don't want you to just dip your toe in. I want you to go all in, and I want you to really take as much value as possible from that opportunity and really provide as much value to your community as possible. Someone is interested in organizing. Stacey, email. Oh, so if someone is interested in co-organizing and send Stacey an email, how does your team determine whether or not that person actually becomes a co-organizer? And I hope this clears up the question. So there's a couple of things that go through. So we look at where you want to be a co-organizer and see, is there a need in that market? Do we have more space available for someone to be a co-organizer? And right now we have a lot of availability. So chances are you'll likely be able to have that availability. But if we already have some co-organizers in that market, and we want you to kind of plug you into that, we want to make sure that your personalities jive and things like that. So we'll make some introductions to you to some of the local meetup groups, or local meetup co-organizers in your market, and then and kind of go from there. But that there's, as far as if you have to close a certain number of deals, obviously that's not part of that's not all part of the decision making, because I think obviously somebody asked earlier about do you have to have closed a deal to be a co-organizer, and you don't. But we don't want to have, say, 3 co-organizers that have never closed a deal in a market, because it makes it a little bit more challenging when you're educating, because they have never closed a deal. Now, it's not always, if that's all we have in a market, then that's different. But if we have 10 people apply for one market, let's just say that Nashville, Tennessee market, we're going to look at that and say who would be the best qualified in that, and to be able to host that particular meetup in Nashville. So hopefully that clarifies it a little bit for you. And it might be a little bit more vague, a little bit vague, but trying to clear that up as much as possible. All right. Well, I want to thank you guys so much for being with us here this morning. There's no more questions that have come through. If for some reason I have not answered some questions for you, or you still have questions, you can feel free to email Stacey, Stacey, at multifamilyinvestornation.com. She can answer some questions for you. And also, if you have questions for me, you can shoot them to her there too. Or and that way she can, field those questions. If she can't answer them, she can reach out to me. But thank you guys so much for being attentive today. Let me go over a couple of other things that will be going on today. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording here just so it doesn't continue on. Hold on one second. Stop recording.